Hi, and welcome back to Football Made Simple. Two of the remaining favourites clashed in Munich as Belgium took on Italy. Belgium were one of the pre-tournament favourites, but Italy have been perhaps the most impressive team at the tournament so far. And in the end, Italy put in a good, although not flawless, performance, coming away 2-1 winners thanks to goals by Insigne and Barella, whilst Lukaku scored for Belgium. The XG was relatively close, although this would of course have been affected by the game state. But what tactics did Mancini and Martinez use? Let's take a look. Here's a reminder of the 11s both managers selected for this quarter-final clash, as you can see on the OneFootball app. OneFootball is sponsoring today's video, and they are the best football app around, as you can get pre-match formations like this, in-game stats, notifications and so much more. And the best part is you can get it completely free through the link in the description below. But that's not all they give you. They have introduced a special Euro 2020 section, so you can easily keep up with breaking news about your favorite teams, players and so much more. So hit the link down below if you want to download OneFootball for free. Now let's start with Italy in possession. Belgium weren't particularly looking to press high from the goal kick initially, meaning that Italy's centre-backs could have comfortable time on the ball. And Belgium used a similar defensive shape as the prior match, with De Bruyne moving central and Lukaku off the right, and instead of pressing the centre-backs, they generally looked to cover the midfield. As a quick reminder, this would allow Lukaku to use his pace in behind the more attacking fullback in Spinazzola, whilst De Bruyne could easily drop into the midfield to launch the counter-attack. And this almost paid dividends a couple of times. But occasionally, Belgium would look to press in their default shape, and the Italian back three would have been a man down, which would have made it difficult to keep the ball. But Di Lorenzo, from right back, tended to start a lot deeper and operate as a right centre back. And one of De Bruyne's main roles when defending would be to drop deeper to cover Jorginho whenever possible. So, in actuality, Italy had an extra man in this deep region, helping them to keep the ball. And centrally in these situations, one of the pivots could join in pressing Verratti, as he tended to drop alongside Jorginho whilst Barella moved higher. So, playing through the centre was difficult for Italy. And in the early parts of the game, Jorginho and Verratti couldn't get any easy time on the ball. This wasn't a problem, however, as the left-hand side has been Italy's main threat throughout the tournament. And Verratti would be one of the triggers for this, moving into a deep left position, which would free Spinazzola to push right up the pitch almost as a winger. So, away from the pressure, with Lukaku generally operating higher and narrower, Verratti saw a lot more of the ball, as we see by him completing more passes than Jorginho, who stayed central, despite playing 20 minutes less. And Spinazzola being so high would often pin Meunier back, who tended to stay deep, whilst Insigne would then have the freedom to stay wide for an easy overload, move narrower to occupy the half space, or even drop deep to get more time on the ball. And his mobility made it difficult for a centre-back to commit to closing him down. It was also tricky, as if Meunier tried to shut things down at the source, the aging centre-backs would now be isolated against more mobile players. So, it meant that at times, the pivots would have to come across to cover this left-hand side threat, potentially leaving space down Italy's right. And Italy's second goal comes down this left-hand side. Spinazzola is wide, tying up Meunier, freeing Insigne to drop deep and pick up the ball. He can drive forward, and again, the Belgium centre-backs aren't willing to break their line in order to pressure the forward. So, it's the pivot in Tielemans who has to come across to cover. But as Tielemans is on a booking, he lets Insigne come through on the inside. There is then a surprising lack of pressure from the centre-backs despite there being no runners from Italy, and they allow Insigne to cut in to produce his trademark finish. As the game went on, Belgium had to press more, so the front three could be drawn to the centre-backs, and with the pivots going man-to-man, we saw a little more of Barella picking up the ball between the lines in these phases, from where he would look to turn and continue the attack. But let's look at Belgium in possession. The first thing to note is that when Italy lost possession higher up, rather than retreating to force Belgium into rushed passes before they could get their heads up. We see this in Barella's goal, where after Belgium win the ball and look to dribble out, Italy are looking to be on the front foot to win it back quickly, with Verratti pushing forward and then feeding Barella. But in open play, high up, Italy's goal was similar, looking to press the centre-backs high up the pitch. And this would at times force Belgium's wing-backs to begin much deeper rather than providing a threat high up. And with this consistent pressure, Belgium were forced into long hopeful balls into a somewhat isolated Lukaku. Belgium could have success, however, if it was Spinazzola rather than Insigne who was pressing Meunier, as it created space in behind him that De Bruyne could then move into and look to receive and advance. And much like Italy, Belgium struggled to play through the centre, with Barella often pushing higher up to press a pivot, potentially joined by Verratti, whilst Jorginho stayed deeper to keep an eye on De Bruyne, who often moved into the attacking midfield position, whilst Meunier pushed high. Tielemans and Witsel struggled to generally break the press, being forced to play with their back to goal for most of the match. De Bruyne would drop into the midfield at times to provide a third progression option in deeper regions, and they did have some success with this. But high up the pitch, Belgium's major threat was Doku off the left-hand side, who they led to get into 1-versus-1 situations as often as possible. And this could often be facilitated by Trojan Hazard moving up from left wing-back into the left half space, as he's naturally a winger who's accustomed to doing this. And this could force Di Lorenzo to operate much more centrally to begin with. So, from deeper regions, Belgium could look for the switch from right to left, and once Doku had the ball, he caused Di Lorenzo nightmares, completing an incredible 8 dribbles, including winning the penalty. However, Belgium just didn't have enough attacking threat at the end of the day. Overall, Italy passed their first big test with a strong performance and will fancy their chances of going deep in this tournament, perhaps even all the way. On the other hand, the clock is rapidly ticking for Belgium's golden generation, and perhaps next year's World Cup may be last chance saloon for them. But what did you make of the match? Drop it down below. And if you want even more content whilst helping to support the channel, consider checking out my Patreon at patreon.com/footballmadesimple. You'll get early access to videos, exclusive videos, as well as access to the upcoming FMS video podcast. But that's all for today, and remember, keep it simple.